Hello, everyone. It's nice to meet you here. So I'm BV. So today I will give a brief introduction on learning and using causal knowledge to advance machine intelligence. So first, let me again emphasize why should we care about causality. We know many tasks in science and engineering require causal information. For instance, causality can help us to better understand mechanisms and processes. For instance, in neuroscience, we would like to understand the information flow between different brain areas in order to understand the underlying brain functions and therefore to provide better treatments for some disorders. And causality also helps for policy making. For instance, the politicians may want to know what if they set a policy of keeping social distance? Would it be useful to prevent the spread of COVID before really executing the policy? Furthermore, in AI, we want to go beyond correlation and domain-specific pattern recognition towards the discovery of the underlying causal relationships that can produce patterns across general scenarios of interest in order to achieve more reasonable prediction and decision-making. And furthermore, causality could also be useful for control, for fault detection, for counterfactuals, for marketing, for medical research, for credit assignment, and so on. So now you may have another question. How can we find causal relationships? We all know that association doesn't imply causality, right? As also mentioned by David. And the traditional ways to find causal relationships is by doing randomized controlled trials, by randomly split the subjects into the treatment group and the control group. However, RCT may face some challenges in practice. For instance, it could be impossible in astronomy. It may be infeasible when investigating too many variables. And it could be unethical, for example, when investigating the living human brains, because we cannot do real intervention in such cases. So alternatively, we want to find causal relationships and identify the causal effects from observational data under appropriate assumptions. This is because observational data are much usually easier to obtain. So here's an illustration. So you can see from the observational data, we want to infer the causal structure as well as to identify the causal effects from the cause to the effect. We know that most approaches in causal discovery have strong assumptions. For example, they assume that there are no hidden confounders. However, in practice, usually it's not possible to measure all task-related variables, right? For instance, this is an illustrated causal graph. Here, X represents our observed variables, and the A represents latent variables that are not measured. We can see here, the causal relations could also happen between the latent variables, which generate what we observe. And furthermore, when the the observed variables are images, or text, or languages, we would like to learn the underlying causal factors or concepts, which may be hierarchically generate the observed image pixels. So here I illustrate 3 tasks, which shows that why it's important to discover the hidden causal word. One is that it could be essential for image, video, language understanding. Basically, by learning the underlying causal factors or concepts behind our observed images or languages, it's essential for image generation, for understanding, as well as for various downstream tasks like prediction, decision-making. And the second task could be useful to identify gene regulation process from gene expression data. So we know that usually in biology, we can only measure some of the RNA data. We cannot measure most of the protein data. Then from only the measured RNA data, how can we recover the entire gene regulation process? And furthermore, in neuroscience, we would like to, from the measured voxel data from fMRI, we want to automatically identify the functional brain regions, as well as information flow between different brain areas. Next, let's see 2 examples about identifying the hidden causal word. This is one example on the Big Five psychometric study. So basically, Big Five contains 5 dimensionalities: openness, consciousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So OCEAN, ocean. So the measured variables are the 50 questions that are designed to reflect these Big Five personalities. So basically, from these 50 questions, we would like to recover the underlying hidden causal word. Let's see our finding. So this is the learned causal structure. Here, OCEAN are the measured 50 variables, 50 questions. And you can see an A represents the latent variables that we recover from the measured data. Here we have very interesting findings. Firstly, we find that those questions which are supposed to be in the same cluster, which are supposed to reflect the same dimension, are clustered in the same cluster. You can see they are illustrated with different colors, which is consistent with the psychology literature. And furthermore, we have more interesting finding. Basically, you can see, we find that within each dimension, we have more detailed structures. Let's, for example, see here. So O3, the question O3 says, I have a vivid imagination. And the question O6 says, I don't have a good imagination. And you can see, these 2 questions are clustered into a small cluster, which can be explained by this ER4 latent variable. And furthermore, finally, we can use this ER6 variable to represent this O dimension. And also, you can see the causal relations behind these 5 dimensions. Basically, we find that ER6, which reflects openness, is a cause to ER3, which reflects extroversion. And ER1, which reflects the C dimension, it causes openness and agreeableness. Okay, now let's see another example. Okay, this is an example on how can we learn the latent causal dynamics from videos. So nowadays, we care much about video data, right? So from the videos, we want to recover the underlying causal factors as well as the causal dynamics behind them. This is a video on the human motion data. So you can see we can recover how different joints interact with each other. And here's a video, the kit mask video. So we can recover the underlying 3 causal vectors and their dynamics. The 3 causal factors include the 2 movements in 2 directions and the size of the figure. And this is a video about the mass spring video. So we can recover the 5 balls and their underlying dynamics. So by learning the causal word, including the hidden causal word, we would like to further make use of causality to facilitate AI in various aspects. First, causal understanding can help us to achieve more efficient prediction with limited samples and sample complexity. This is because by knowing the causal structure relationships, we can know which factors are minimal sufficient for prediction. Then we can only use that subset of factors for prediction. And furthermore, causality is essential for improving generalization and adaptation ability in new environments. It can provide us more precise, efficient, effective, and interpretable generalizations. Let's take this as an example. Suppose this is a causal structure, and the blue nodes represent invariant causal mechanisms, and the red nodes represent varying causal mechanisms. If we can learn the causal relationships and locate which ones are changing and which ones are invariant, then you can see we can only make adaptations on these three edges, which may only contain 3 parameters. We don't need to adapt the whole system, but instead we can only adapt these 3 parts. So you can see causal understanding can help us to locate the changes and understand how the distribution shifts, so that we can do adaptation with fewer data and with simpler models. And furthermore, we know that causal understanding can help us to achieve active manipulation and control. And also, it can provide us with creativity. For example, we usually want to answer questions like, what if I had taken a different action? Or why this happens? So these are all causal questions that can be answered. Below, let me give a quick case study on how to leverage causal representations and graph structures to enhance reinforcement learning. We know although deeper reinforcement learning have been very successful in recent years, there are several issues still remaining, including the lack of interpretability, not generalized well, and data hungry. So we want to mitigate such issues through causal representations and graph structures. Let's take this car driving as an example. So when driving a car on the street, the agent may receive various signals, right? Such as speed, position, and direction of the car, how are the surrounding vehicles, and also including music and air conditioning and the remote scenery. So from these various sensor signals, the agent would like to extract which signals are reward relevant and controllable. If the agent wants to arrive at the destination as soon as possible as a reward. So you can see that let's use O to here's a graphical illustration. Let's use O to represent the observed videos. And A is the actual signal, and R is the observed reward signal. And here, the middle part are the hidden causal word, including the underlying latent state representations and the dynamics. So from the observed videos, we would like to discover the hidden causal word, which state representations are essential for policy learning, and which state representations are action controllable, and which ones are just noise, which is irrelevant to our task. And we also want to recover the dynamics on these state representations, so that it can help us to achieve more efficient and effective policy optimization. Let me skip this. So, and furthermore, we know that our real world is always changing. Then how can we make use of the previously learned knowledge, and so that we can do quick adaptation when facing new environments? Basically, we can make use of the following properties of causal understanding in order to help transfer reinforcement learning. One is that causal understanding can help us to identify what and where the changes are. And furthermore, it can help us to identify a minimal sufficient set of factors that are essential for policy transferring. And furthermore, it can help us to understand how the factors are changing. For instance, suppose we transfer the system from Earth to the Mars with the change of gravity. Basically, if the agent can understand that it is the change of gravity that makes the change of policy, then the agent can very quickly adapt its policy by only learning the one-dimensional gravity factor without re-optimize the underlying policy. So basically, with causality, with causal understanding, we can achieve what, where, and how to adapt in transfer reinforcement learning. Here, we besides including the structural relationships among variables in the system, we also introduce a low-dimensional variable theta to characterize the environment shifts in a compact way. Basically, you can see here we use theta O to represent the changes in the observation function, such as the white noise added on the images. And we use theta S to represent the changes in the underlying transition dynamics. For example, when transferring the system to from the Earth to the Mars, we have different gravity, which leads into different transition dynamics. And we use theta R to represent the changes in the reward function. And in this example, we can use theta S to represent the one-dimensional gravity change and the theta O to represent the change of the noise ratios added on the images. You can see, with such a causal understanding, we can achieve more interpretable forecasting. We can, and as well as decision making. We can know where to and how to adapt. Basically, we only need to consider the one-dimensional change of the gravity in this case. And it can help us to achieve more efficient and effective forecasting. And notice that not all features are necessary for adaptation, and not all state dimensions are necessary for policy optimization. Here, only these shaded states are useful. And furthermore, since the causal system enjoys the modularity property, then each factor can be adapted separately, which can avoid the cost of dimensionality. Okay, great. Let me briefly summarize how can we learn and using causal knowledge to advance machine intelligence. Basically, we can say it's possible to learn causal relationships from observational data. And for the next few years, we will mainly focus on how to develop a more general framework for causal discovery and inference that requires much weaker assumptions. For example, it can allow the existence of hidden word, allow selection bias in the data, allow distribution shifts, allow missing values, and so on. And furthermore, we would like to achieve more efficient learning in large-scale systems, because in practice, in some systems, like in biology, we may have millions of variables to consider. And furthermore, we would like to, after having the computational results, we would like to use the minimal number of doing minimal number of experiments to verify the learned causal relationships from computational methods. And also, we have seen how to use causality for AI and the scientific discovery. We can see it's important to learn the hidden causal word by causal representation learning. And we have seen causal understanding can help us to achieve efficient prediction with limited samples and model complexity. And it provides us beta generalization and adaptation ability in new environments. and it's essential for active manipulation and control, as well as for creativity to answer what if and why questions. Thank you.